Yo.
Welcome to Let's No Longer Waste Time. Let's podcast episode. Who the fuck knows?
5?
More than that.
We should write this down too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We have no.
Someone knows.
We have absolutely no rhyme or reason to when we record, like weekly, bi-weekly, twice a day, like whenever we're free, we do it.
Yeah.
So there might be some big time jumps between what we're talking about, or none at all.
None at all.
We could be in the same clothes for 2 episodes.
Yeah, you'll never know. I'll just change out of t-shirt.
You know, it's funny. I get a lot of comments from people who are like, I really enjoyed yours. I've always wanted to do one with my friends and talk about blah or blah or blah. And I'm always like, just do it, man. Like, it's just not hard. Like, we're on a Zoom.
We're talking about who knows what.
And that's my first reaction when someone said, "Hey, I just watched your podcast. I really like it." My first response is always, "Really?" ?
It's fine. So like, and you kind of judge them a little bit. Like, really?
Right.
Like, are they being nice, or are they just like, no, I listened to the whole thing. I'm like, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
All of it. Yeah. I really liked it.
And I feel like we need a disclaimer now that we're on video. So if you're watching this, I promise you nothing happens. Nothing.
A cat might jump up here or there.
But we don't cut to funny videos. We don't have little fancy things. Like, literally, like this, what you're seeing here, that's it.
Right. And we don't even have yet the money to have someone in the room, but we can't even be in the same room, where they're fact checking us or showing us a video or where we can cut to something.
Yeah.
Play music. No, we don't have any of that.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No.
Even if we had 10 billion subscribers and real sponsors and real money, I don't want a fact checker. I don't want to be called wrong. The whole podcast would just be us being wrong.
Yeah, but that would be funnier.
I guess.
You know it's coming. That's the part that I love.
By the way, I'm just picking out of a hat right now. We haven't done the hat.
Let me do my plug. Having some Kicking Horse coffee. Wake up and kick ass with Kicking Horse coffee. There.
Good?
I hope.
Okay.
That was it. That's all I have to do.
I'm looking at my phone to see if the payment was processed.
It wasn't. No.
Believe it or not, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's weird.
All right. So this is dryer sheets. Dryer sheets. I don't know if we'll get to it or not, but at least we picked out of a hat.
All right. That first thing that came to mind. All right, got it. I'm in.
You been good?
Me?
No.
Who else would you be talking to? Oh, me. Right.
Yeah,
I'm good, man. Yeah. I can't complain. I think we need to talk about you. It's all about you. You turned an age.
50.
Saying 50. 50. Welcome to the club.
You can say it because there's no one who watches or listens that doesn't already know.
How does it feel?
This one hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Because of the hangover?
A little bit. Okay. Yeah. The 2 nights before my birthday, for sure. But I don't know. Like, I've never been a big birthday guy. Ever, right. I'm not one of those, like, celebrate all week, celebrate all month. I don't make a fuss.
When I first met you, I had no idea how old you were.
Yeah. I just, I'm not like one of those, it's my birthday week, or, it kind of comes and goes. And, towards the end of the workday, someone will walk and go, "Today's your birthday?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh my God, happy birthday. Why don't you tell anyone?" I'm like,
"Yeah,
I don't know."
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't care.
Not that I don't dislike it. I don't dislike it. It's not like I dislike it. I've never been a celebrator. And then there's those people that like celebrate for a week.
Yeah.
Oof. I can't imagine that. And I hate the birthday song. Fuck that.
It's weird, right?
It's a terrible song.
Although there was a really funny moment during my birthday dinner when one of my friends, after they sang, I blew out the candles.
Oof.
And then he turns to me and he says, this might actually be your last happy birthday, because you're now officially old for He's a Jolly Good Fella.
Yeah. And you got to swing the arm when you sing it.
Right. And then
that
so
nobody
like,
can deny. No one can deny you.
and then
No one.
and then we later on in the dinner, they actually the whole table started singing it, which was very funny. And what we realized too is that
Can you imagine eating and being like, the fuck? What old guy just turned 70?
right.
He's a jolly good fella.
Yeah, who put his clothes on by himself? You know,
Tell Pop I said hi. All right.
something like that. No,
Yeah.
I mean, but so what we discovered while we were singing it is that there's no ending; just keeps going. It just
no one. Yeah.
it just
I think you
it's
just run
like
out of
row
steam.
your boat. It's just
Yeah.
it's constant. It's a loop. It constantly renews.
Snake eating its tail. All right. So
Yeah,
how was it painful?
What the
Being 50.
you know, it's I can't describe it, right? Like I didn't care about and it's really just a month, right? Like it was Sunday, right? And then
this is our format, so you're going to have to describe it.
the you know, like it was Saturday, then it was Sunday, then it was Monday, right? So like Sunday really shouldn't have mattered. It's not like all of a sudden I transform into some weird thing, right? But like 30, I didn't even phase me. 40 didn't phase me. Mm-hmm. This one just all of a sudden it just feel like I got an AARP packet. Oh yeah, and all of a sudden it's like yeah, which I think they need to rebrand, by the way. Like who retires at 50? Like when this was created, I don't know, what, 100 years ago? Like people were dead at 60, right? So they retired at like 45, 50. Yeah. So, but I kind of think that AARP, I think 65 is the new 50. Don't you think?
I think it's 65, but I think it's like any other big industry. Like they're just trying to figure out how to get you into it earlier. And I think, but it's one of those things that everyone begrudges until you don't. You're like, I don't want, that means I'm old and I'm not going to do that. And all of a sudden someone's like, but I get a discount card. That's when you know you're old, when you're using your senior discounts, when you're like a card carrying member of AARP. But
do you use it?
Yeah. No.
Right?
Because I'm not old. No, I'll be 52.
I haven't even opened the package. But I don't know. So like just 50 just feels
weird.
Yeah. If like I felt like when I was in my 30s, it was like, oh, he's an overachiever. He's successful. Now at 50, it's like, why isn't he retired?
Do you feel like you're at the top of the mountain and now it's all down?
A little bit.
Did that creep in?
I might have been at the top of the mountain for like, I think I've been going down. I don't know. Like I'm sort of, I've plateaued. I feel like the last, like ever since the second kid was born, it just like nothing changes. Mm-hmm. Like when I see people and they're like, hey, how you doing? What's new? And I'm like, I don't know what's been new for fucking 10 years. Like there's nothing new.
You would shock me if one day you were just like, I just took up crocheting. I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm coming out with all these pickles. What? Like, that's just not like, and again, this isn't a judgment. You're consistent where you don't have to fight the demons that I do with constantly trying to think of something new to do. Like just constantly thinking of like, oh, I could do a pop-up gallery. Or I could do this. It's exhausting, but yeah.
It is pretty, it's been pretty consistent. Yeah. I mean, it was fun. Like we went to New Orleans. I've always wanted to go to jazz festival. Yeah. Never been to jazz festival. Oof. So about 6 months, and it always falls over my birthday. Mm-hmm. And like 6 months ago, my wife was like, so do you like, what do we want to do something special for your 50th? I'm like, I don't care, And she's like, she's like, come on, just once, like, let's do something cool for your birthday. And I was like, okay, I mean, what are, maybe we can do a trip or maybe we can do something. And then I realized that they had just announced that Jazz Fest will be back and it'll be May 1st, which is like on my birthday. My birthday was a Sunday. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this is an excuse this has been a bucket list item for me. Why don't we do it? Yeah. So we threw out we told everyone we knew, or at least everyone who I'd want to spend my birthday with. And so sorry if you didn't get the invite, but so
I was busy.
Yeah, we went to a lot of a bunch of people came and we spent all weekend in New Orleans.
So was it crowded?
Yeah.
So I used to go to Jazz Fest in the 90s, like the late 90s, where there were no cell phones. So if you got separated from your group, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And
you saw them at the hotel later.
you go to Harry's Corner Bar. There's a specific bar you went to, and you will eventually run into someone from Baltimore. But yeah, I'm sure it's changed. Did you go to the gospel tent?
No.
Damn it.
I know. You told me to.
That's
I mean,
like one of the best things.
So jazz, I'm like, it was a weird experience.
Was it hot?
It was like, oh, it was so hot. It was pouring rain all morning and thunderstorms. And there was like 60% chance of rain all day. And I looked at the radar and I'm like, because we only went one day. We didn't go like the whole weekend. Like we just fucked around New Orleans.
Yeah. Yep.
That Friday night, Saturday. And then we went Sunday. Some of my favorite acts were all just happened to be playing on the same day.
Sunday's a big day. Yep.
Yeah. So it was storms all morning. It said 60% chance of rain most of the day. But I'm looking at the radar and I'm like, I think that's south. I think it's south of us. So we had enough like pullovers and stuff like that. So, but when we got there, it was like blue skies, a little bit humid and 90. Like it was so, and like when we first set up our little area in front of one of the stages, one of my friends said like, hey, do you want me to go get you a beer? It's probably 11:30. And I was like, I honestly don't think that's a good idea. Like, I just don't think it's a good idea right now. Like it's 90. We're going to be here for 8 hours. Like, let's at least get 3 bottles of water in us, and then start.
How responsible you were.
I know. It comes with age, I guess.
Yeah.
But
How much were beers? Because we used to be able to get, when it was your round, like I went with a bunch of bartenders and bar owners, and they're insane. Love them, but they're insane. And everyone was insane on this troop. Not crazy like Hunter S. Thompson crazy, but just like you went full throttle the whole time. You were just constantly going, and you woke up, you went to the bar, and if you looked like shit, someone handed you a Jaeger shot, you did it, and then you're back in the game. So by the end of it, you just had alcohol poisoning. But I remember just being able to get 10 Miller Lite cans for $20.
Yeah.
And you went to the same bar stand and you tipped the person, you paid them before you tipped them before everything is like, I'm going to be coming to you all the time. So you didn't have to stand in line. You just hand them $100 bill and you're like, and we're done for the rest of the day. I don't have to tip you. Every time I hand you a 20, you hand me 10. And they would put a chunk of ice on top of it. It was so hot one time when we were there that the beers were getting warmer, walking them back, and all the ice would melt. So we were just shotgunning everything. We were shotgunning beers. And like, how irresponsible was that? Like we were literally like, we call it Shotgun Sunday, and we were just shotgunning beers. And we would just ride it out and then drink water. And the sun is just baking you down. And you're like, look, it's Sting. And you can't see straight because you're just completely like dehydrated. But yeah, Jazz Fest, man. There's a great bar right near the Equestrian Center called Liuzza's. And they always had some honky tonk band or like a sort of a blues band outside on the back of like a flatbed truck. And then you could go and get, we called gin and tuzz, because it was like gin and tonic, but it was like gin and then tonic. Like it was like there's a little bit of tonic went into it. And then they would throw all these pickled vegetables into it. And we called that lunch. And then so we sat there and just drank these gin and tonics after the Jazz Fest. Literally, it was our way out. And then all the cabs would come and pick you up to take you back to wherever you were staying. And that's a long day, man.
It's a real long day. Like it's, what was weird for me is that I love live music. You know that, like I love live music, but you also know that I hate crowds. Hate crowds, right? Yeah. I mean, it was almost like getting a slice of pizza with black olives on it. I'm like, all right, I love pizza and I really don't like black olives. Right. So you're just like, all right, I can figure this out. Right. If I can take the black olives off, I can avoid the crowd. Is that a cat?
Motherfucker, man. All right.
So, it wasn't as bad. Like there's spots, right? Like you can still see the music, hear the music, and you don't really have to be like, it looks like you're going through an earthquake right now.
She's just rubbing her head. Stop. She's rubbing her head against my computer.
So good.
Keep going.
But like you can find, I can take the black olives off, right? Like we were standing off to the side. There was a nice big open patch, like where we had our chairs planted.
There's all the different stages. You can go to this
we walk
stage. You
around.
can go to the gate. What was the one was like called the Gator stage, where it was all like Creole music.
It was
do they still have
nonstop.
that?
Like there was a lot. I think like there was so many acts I wanted to see between the Gentilly, like the second biggest stage, and the main stage, that we kind of just bounced back and forth. And there was a little bit of roaming around. The food was like fucking
Food's
amazing.
great. Did you get
so
the crawfish Monica, which is like mac and cheese with crawfish in it? That's always a staple.
Didn't have that, but
deep fried crawfish Monica. Like crawfish Monica is just basically like mac and cheese with it's spicy, but it's just, and it has crawfish in it. But that was one of my favorite things. Mouth is salivating.
Yeah, we like even the first day that we were there was Friday, and my wife and I, we checked in the hotel probably 3:30, and then we just kind of walked around the French Quarter. She had never been to the city, so we, and she was like, "Oh, Bourbon Street, like party central." I'm like, lower your expectations. It's an absolute shitbox,
sticky, full of regret.
but you have to sort of experience it to know that you don't ever need to experience it.
Yep.
So we walked around, and then we walked by Pat O'Brien's, the famous, like,
with
where they invented the
hurricanes.
hurricanes. Yeah. Yep. So we walked by, and I'm like, hey, this is like a famous bar. Like, this is like the tourist trap. Like, this is like the famous bar. They invented the hurricane. We almost have to just go in there and have one like this. That's just what we need to do. So we walk in. By now it's maybe 5. And we kind of sit, and it's a big outdoor
that open courtyard.
With the fountain. Not a lot of people. It's just very pleasant. There's just her and I. We knew that there was gonna be a lot of people all weekend, so we just got some her and I time.
There wasn't a huge fight there.
And
huge fight.
Wait, park that. Hold on, we'll come back to that. I'm gonna finish this, and then we're gonna come back to that. So we sit down, and we order 2 hurricanes, and like they're big, like they're really big, and like they're not great. It's just it's just
like Kool-Aid and rum and vodka.
It's like just like sugar bomb of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so and then I love that there's like an orange wheel and like a grape or a cherry or something, like just one of like, it's just like that's what separates
phoning it in. Yep.
Right.
Like,
that's what separates it from like the fraternity house grain punch and a hurricane is basically a orange wheel and a cherry.
They're not savages.
So, we have one, and then I get a text from some of our friends who, like a couple who was like, hey, we just, we just got here. We're ready. Where are you? And we're like, oh, we're at Pat O'Brien's. So then they come.
They showed up.
And then we're like, you have to have a hurricane. That's how you get initiated to the city. So then, now we're sitting there, we're having more hurricanes. And then another friend texts, hey, where are you guys? Hey, we're at Pat O'Brien's. They come, sit down. You have to have a hurricane. Another couple, where are you guys at? Pat O'Brien's. They come, fast forward, it's like 1 a.m, right? Like we haven't left.
Was the table just covered
in glasses?
Not left.
By now we've it's like big plastic cup.
Oh, they're plastic because they used to be glass.
Yeah, they were.
That's how you tipped them. You left all the glasses because they were worth money. No, seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the glass was worth, like, say it was $2 because everyone was stealing them all the time. So if you left with it, they would add $2. They always added $2 to your bill. But if you left them on the table, that was your tip.
Oh, wow.
Like you then could the waiter or waitress could then take them and cash them in for all the money.
Didn't know that.
That was the.
If I had known that, I would have left all the plastic, right? That's got to be worth,
I don't know. Yeah.
80 cents.
So when you don't know, I think people leave them and they cash them in and get tipped. But we knew. This is before the fight. Yeah.
Well, we had some food there too, but and my body doesn't know what to do with a hurricane. It's used to beer, bourbon, and wine. That's what my body's used to. So we were loopy as hell, right? And and then we just kind of walked around Bourbon Street, and like I said, it's just a shit box, right? Like it's just garbage, and it's loud, and every place is playing their own music. It's just this white noise, and then there's like bands marching down the street. I mean, it probably, I was there when I was much younger. It was fun, right? But now as an adult, I'm like, this is a shit box.
Yeah.
And so Angela got to experience it, and that was cool. I mean, it was fun, right? We're so drunk, it's just fun anyway.
You have to have the edge taken off to deal with Bourbon Street.
So when I woke up, like I wasn't hung over. I probably knocked about 50 IQ points off temporary. Like, it's one of those
Brain
hazes
shake.
where like I was standing online to get coffee and they were like, what can I get you? And I was like,
delay.
It just the mental delay. And I was like, even if we wanted to go to Jazz Fest today, I am in no mood to try and negotiate that. Just none. So brought coffee back. We had lunch reservations with another couple at 1:15 at a really good restaurant. And it was amazing. One of the best lunches I've ever had. But like I hadn't heard from him like at noon. I'm like, we still on for 1:15. 12:30 rolls around. I'm like, are we still good? Like I've texted him 3 times. Finally, my wife texts his wife and she's like, yeah, I don't think he's in any condition to eat right now.
Oh.
And I was like, okay.
Really?
Right? So then I texted another friend and I was like, hey, we have 2 seats open for lunch. Do you want to join us? And he's like, yeah, that's not going to be happening. And I was like, oh boy. Right. So
everyone like literally
dead.
I hate to say it, blew their load on the first night.
But doesn't that always happen when you do a trip though? Like whenever you do a big trip, especially when it's a group trip and it's sort of like a vacation, the first night's always big, like really big. And then all of a sudden, and then the second day is like, yeah, we shouldn't do that again. We're going to be here 2 more nights. Like, let's maybe take it easy.
Or you just keep it rolling.
Well, again, in your 20s.
Going.
Yeah. In your 20s, you wake up to a beer, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now. Like if you're looking for a change at 50, that's it. I just don't have fun the same way I used to have fun. Like thinking about waking up and chugging a beer. Like when you said, you see someone who doesn't look that great in a bar, they do a Jaeger shot, they're back to normal. Now, like we're at the age where if you don't look good in a bar, you drink a full glass of water and your spouse takes you home.
Right.
That's what happens. Right.
Or or we're at the place in our lives also, or you do sort of moderate all that. And then the next day, you're like, I think I want to go for a run or something like that. Or like you go to the hotel gym, you're doing that type of stuff.
And like, we're really good at drinking, right? Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm very, like, I don't get that drunk anymore where I'm incoherent, where I pass out, where I throw up. Like, I just don't I just know I'm so in tune with what's going on. Throughout and that doesn't mean I don't get bombed, right? That doesn't mean I should ever be behind the wheel of a car. It just means that like I never tip that point to like, oh, this dude's a bad drunk. Like, God, we need to get home.
Did anyone in your trip do that? Like,
no,
all of a sudden, oh yeah.
There was one friend who
New Orleans can bring it out in people where you're like, oh God, Frank the Tank just showed up.
Yeah.
Wow, look at Frank
but again, I still think that's like 30s and 40s, right? Like at 50.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe
just in my circle.
You can be anywhere. I don't know. I don't put it past anybody, especially in New Orleans, to like all of a sudden just they've been sitting at home dealing with their life and then they fucking air it out at like Ocean City or like wherever, they're going to just air it out. Like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I did have one friend who just wasn't looking great at the bar, and he was just kind of like, and he did an Irish exit, right? Like at one point, like I went to the bathroom, I came back, there was 2 empty seats at our table, right? Oh. And like, and because I think, again, he's experienced, he's a veteran. He was just like, yeah, this is probably time for me to tap out.
Oh,
one more drink and it would have been a much better story, right? Yeah. But he knew like, this is it for me.
So New Orleans did not win.
No.
I said that every time in the airport when I left New Orleans. Like, New Orleans won again. Beat the shit out of me. But again, I was in my late 20s.
Yeah, but in my late 20s, I got the shit kicked out of me by like every city I ever visited.
That's true. But Canton.
Yeah, like I just do. I've gotten the shit beat out of me at home on the couch. Like that's kind of just what happened in your 20s and 30s. But like I said, then you get to a point where you just, I don't know.
That's a fun birthday though. That's a good one. That's a good like. You probably don't ever have to go there again. New Orleans.
Yeah,
Jazz Fest maybe, but
it's an interesting city, right? Like if we ever
right.
just decided to go see, there's great museums. Like I heard the World War II Museum is. I had some friends who actually
The
did that.
Garden Districts is beautiful, like going
Yeah,
out there. And then there's like there what I loved about where you were, like where the quarter is, there's all this fringe stuff on either side. And in the like, when you go down Bourbon Street and it's like there's a dead part of Bourbon Street. Like you can just see it stops.
right.
Well, if you keep going, it opens up and there's more to Bourbon Street. It's just on the fringe. And that's where all the gay bars are. And that's where all like the white underbelly of New Orleans, that's where the locals go. And that part, that's where that vampire bar is. I can never remember the name of it, but it's the oldest bar, I think, in the United States. And it's been in Interview with the Vampire. It's still standing. It's amazing like how it's still standing, but it's lit inside with candles. And it's a really cool bar. But that's on the
still there.
Fringe. Yeah, it's on the fringe of Bourbon Street. And if we had our fact checker, he or she could pull it up.
Yeah, we didn't like that. Like to me, if I went back there, and I'm sure I'll be back, but if I went back there, that's what I'd be most interested in, is actually seeing stuff. I want to take one of those like where it looks like you're like the giant fan on the back of like a little tub, and you go through the marshes, like in the swamps and like those big things. You're kind of you're just like, how do people not fall off? How do alligators not just jump on? Like those.
How loud?
How does that thing even float? What'd you say?
How loud is that thing?
Probably loud, right? They all seem to have headphones.
Super loud.
And so I think there's a lot to do if you're not going there to party.
Right.
But like we didn't do any of it. We actually took a haunted bar crawl tour on Saturday night, which was fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've seen those before. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you see like every other block has a big, almost a sandwich board sign that's like, haunted ghost tour, haunted this, like marsh tour, mansion tour. Right. And I was like, you know what? I think that could just be a fun thing to do. And like our tour guy was just such a fucking ham, like almost annoyingly so. That it like he was so annoying it became fun, because we were just like, this guy is so annoying. Like after the second
Did
or
he have
third
a
bar,
top hat on?
He was so, and then like someone looked him up and he was actually on like IMDb. Like he was an old, like a retired actor who was in like really tiny roles. And it was interesting. I mean, we learned some stuff. The stories were kind of funny occasionally. But like even we were at one bar and we were like, should we just stay here? Like, should we just ditch the tour? Right? And like it was two groups, right? I think there was like 18 of us. So like if more than half of that didn't carry on, I think people would notice.
Right.
But yeah, it was fun. But you talk about like the oldest bar. I feel like New Orleans has the oldest of so many things. Like we saw the oldest brothel, maybe the oldest like firehouse or fire station. Right. We saw the oldest like slave quarter thing, the oldest, and we were just like, I never think about it when I think about the history of this country. Everything just sort of stays on the coast,
right,
and on the East Coast, and so I was just like, how is this the oldest brothel? Like is this
because it was around before, probably even before the 1700s, because the French owned it.
Yeah, I guess
That's my theory.
But it's just funny that you're like, oh, did the colonists just not? How we can pay for this?
Yeah,
we can pay for this. Not only can we pay for this, we can centralize it in one location. Like exactly. like it just seemed like something that would have been around forever. Right. But oldest bar, brothel, like all this stuff.
That town, like, it reminds me of Vegas, where everyone goes to air it out. Like, there's always people with their hands in the air. Not that I was definitely doing that, but like, you're just like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Let's do it. And you go to Vegas and do the same thing. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, it's Vegas. It's Vegas. When I was this is my one story I'll tell.
Well, no, I haven't forgotten about the brawl at Pat O'Brien. We'll get to that.
So we'll get there. And that's the only two stories I'll tell. So it was Jazz Fest 1990 blank. And I wish I had my friends around me, because they tell the story better, because I remember parts of it, but I don't remember all of it. But we had been It was either an off. I want to say it was an off day because we got rained out for Jazz Fest, so we just went bar hopping. But I could be wrong about that. But that's where it is in my mind. So we go to this bar, and it was called the Vault or something like that. And it was a really old bar. It was probably on your haunted tour. It's an old, like you walk in, and it's like an old, not a bank, but it feels that way. I think it was called the Vault or something. But it was right near our hotel. So it was right around the corner from where we were staying. So it was kind of our local. Like if you got lost, you went there too. So it was like if you need to huddle up before we go to dinner, let's all meet there. So we're I'm like, I don't know what my blood alcohol level was, probably 2. I was like I was in deep, and the music's playing, and it's this the really good atmosphere, and everyone's kind of dancing in the bar. And all of a sudden, Tom Jones comes on. This is what I remember. Tom Jones comes on, and all of a sudden I look over, and my friend Brad looks at me, and he's like, oh shit. Like I had to apparently look on my face, like, yeah. And I got up on the bar. Now I'm on top of the bar. And in New Orleans, this is not a big deal.
Right.
Like, no one cares. They're moving things out of the way. And I'm on the bar, and I'm dancing on the bar. And all of a sudden, I catch part of the bar wrong, and I start losing my balance. So I'm facing the people, and the bar is behind me. So I'm on the bar's behind me. And in Baltimore, if you're on a bar, you can grab the ceiling because it's right there. That's how low our ceilings are in Baltimore. Well, I go to grab the ceiling because I'm going back. There's no ceiling. So I fall straight back into all of the bottles. So, there's that space where the bartender stands.
Yeah.
My body goes into the bottles, then falls in that space and takes like all the garnished like limes and lemons, and all the shit goes flying everywhere. And I made a hell of a noise, just crashing through all these bottles. And I'll never forget this. My friend, he turned to my other friend and says, I think John's probably dead. Like the way I hit, like he said, you hit and then you bounced into the front of the bar and then you went back down. And God loves babies and drunks because you just go with it.
Right.
I got up. I was covered in glass, and I had a cut on my elbow and a cut on my head from where my head hit the bar, the speed rail of the bar. And I got up, and the bartender looked like he had me dead too. He had me like, I always joke, like I would have needed a helper monkey for the rest of my life. Like I was out, like there's no way I got out of that one. Okay. And I stood up, and the guy's like, whoa. He's like, let me get all the glass off you first. And there's bottles everywhere. But then I noticed all the bottles there's not liquor everywhere. So there were all these empty bottles. So at first I was like, oh shit. And then he's like, hey, don't worry about it. And I was like, man, I'm really sorry. That was a fucking rookie move. He's like, no big deal, man. It happens all the time. But I'm going to need you to sit right here. And he's like, I was in the penalty box at the end of the bar. And he didn't let anyone else talk to me. He goes, because if I throw you out, I lose all this business. Because we were like with 20 people. So he's like, I lose all this business. So you're just going to sit there for a while. I was like, okay. So I just sat there, and I like still picking glass off of me. And everyone just keeps looking at me like, yeah, you're alive. Like I literally just lived through this thing. And they're like patching my head up. We leave for, I want to say like dinner or something like that. And somehow I got food and I passed
lunch.
Out. Yeah. Like literally like lunch, eggs, whatever it was. But we left the next day. When you have that, like, holy shit, oh my God, what did I do last night? And then everyone's talking about it at breakfast the next day. Like, dude, like you almost died last night. I went in to that bar the next day with my tail between the legs. And I was like, hey man. And the bartender was there. I was like, I don't know if you were here, but he's like, you're the guy who fell into the bar. I was like, yeah. He goes, you look great. And I was like, yeah, like I'm okay. And he's like, don't do that again, but please come back. And that's New Orleans. Like we would rather take your money but just don't fuck up all of our stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're used to you guys treating this place like a toilet, but just be cool. And I went back and I was like, I'm really sorry, man. I was bartending at the time. I was like, I'm a bartender and I don't know what got in me. He's like, yeah, it's cool. Don't worry about it. In Baltimore, you would have been barred, never allowed back in the bar. You know what I mean? There would have been all these consequences.
You'd be paying for things that you didn't even
Yeah.
break, and you'd be in
Yep.
jail.
They didn't even give us a bill like he broke all this stuff. It was just like, just fuck, dude, just don't do it again. I was like, oh my God. But I literally, John, if I wish there was video of it, but there wouldn't have been because no one had phones. But
Right.
it was just, that was my one story where I was like, that's why I kind of always will have an endearing part of me will love New Orleans, because they're just so tolerant. Everyone's
very
just
nice.
so,
Everyone.
everyone's just so like, all right, yeah, man, it's cool.
What
Yeah.
happened at Pat O'Brien's?
Oh, so that was another, might have been the same year. Who knows? Because we used to go every year, this group of bartenders and bar owners. And one year we decided near the end of the trip, we weren't going to drink. Let's just chill out and not drink and just like ride it out. And then tomorrow we're all going to get on planes and we're all going to go back to Baltimore. So we go to Pat O'Brien's because we're like, it's beautiful. Let's just sit outside, because there's not a lot of places to sit outside in New Orleans. There's like
Right.
sort of areas, but like not, it's not like cafes everywhere where you can just sit outside. So my friend's now wife, but girlfriend, I think they were girlfriend, boyfriend at the time, maybe they were married, decided like, let's just go play cards. That'll keep us out of trouble. And we were there and we got some food. And then all of a sudden, one of my friends says, like, let's just have one. We're here. Let's have one hurricane. And it was the same thing happened.
First domino.
Yep. We had one. We're like, that wasn't bad. That was like Kool-Aid with booze. Can't even really taste the booze. I feel fine. Do you feel fine? We all felt fine. So we're all sitting there, and then more people started showing up, and our table kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, and then we all started joking like, hey, we're not drinking today. And the table is just covered with hurricane glasses. And we're still playing cards. And there was this table of guys that were near us, and they were loud, but it's New Orleans. So, but they were just like a kind of obnoxious loud. Does that make sense? Like they were like
annoying.
A lot of testosterone, a lot of like dudes being annoying. But we were loud, but we weren't, I don't know, it was a different loud, but because I was part of it. I don't know. It was just a different loud. Anyway, one of my friends' girlfriends or wives has very big boobs. And she walked by this table to go to the bathroom, and one guy said something. Now I didn't hear what was said. Then she came back and said to her boyfriend, who is built like a Viking, this guy is humongous and has a very short fuse. So that's a weird combination. Said something to him, and he's like, which one? And she goes, the bald guy over there. The guy gets up, and we're all like, we all know. He's like one of my best friends. We all know it. And we all literally take our sunglasses off. It's going down. And all you heard was every chair go, like all the chairs came out of us. And the guys looked at us, and we just stood up. We weren't like flexing and like, warming up, but we all just stood up. Tom walks over there and says, you owe my girlfriend an apology. And he goes, for what? And he goes, what did you say to her? And he said, well, man, if she's going to be dressed like that, someone's going to say something to her. And all of a sudden it was like, boom. And like, it was on, and it was a melee. It was like, it was a hockey fight. You just picked a guy.
Right.
And hopefully he's your size.
Yeah.
So we pair off, and we jumped over there. They were Chicago cops, and we're just like banging on them, and like everywhere. It's like a melee. And somewhere there's a panic button in that bar, because staff came from everywhere, and they're pulling us off each other. They don't throw us out. They just separate us. And our shirts are all like, You know what I mean? Like we put our sunglasses on. There's staff everywhere. Everyone's like, there had to have been some sort of button that they hit because people came out. I want to say they came out from the sky on like ropes. Like they just shut this fight down so fast. By the end of the time, their table was part of our table. Like the fight never happened. It was very New Orleans. Like, and then we all say goodbye to them, and they're like, "Yeah, thanks for doing the cop stuff. Sorry about the fight," and left. And we're all doing the fuck. You know?
Did you punch like were you fighting?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like there was just like a fight. It was like, but it was so fast that it was like it was over before it started.
See, like whenever I'm in one of those situations, like I'm, believe it or not a fighter at all. Like I avoid, like I'm always trying to break it up to the point where I realize that I'm gonna get punched by two sides if I keep trying to break it up as much as I try and break it up. So I'm pretty passive when it comes to that kind of stuff, whether it's my friends or not. I don't know how to fight. I don't like getting hurt. There's never, I don't like confrontation. I don't like anger. But I've been in those situations before, mostly in college, right?
Right.
So like, I would always try and find me in the other table, the guy who's just like,
oh, trust me. I
you know,
found
and like
the
they
guy
have
that
this
didn't
look
want to
like,
fight, and we were just like,
yeah, like I try and find the one guy
busy.
who's just like, no, please no, right?
Let's look
and
busy.
Like, and then I'll go over and like I'll just kind of like we'll hold on to each other, and like we're watching, we're watching what's going on, and we'll start talking like, do we got to break this up? Like we got, like that's sort of my role in those fights.
We had a guy in our group, and he owned Pickles Pub. This guy, man, he was so fun. I haven't been around him in years, but he's like this little guy. And I say this with respect. He's probably like 5'7", 5'8", little guy. Like, but he was talking so much shit right before the fight because we had bigger guys in our group. We had like almost like a football team line. And then it was like me, the kicker, and then the punter. And we're like, yeah, fuck you. We were those guys, but then we ran and got into it. But it was just, I think it was just funny because New Orleans just was like, here we go. And someone's hitting the button. And then it was shut down. No one got thrown out. But the funniest part was, again, maybe this isn't a great story, but it was us just taking our sunglasses. Like we know what's about to happen. And I just know I've been punched in the face before with sunglasses on when you're like, okay, because that's the last time that's going to happen. So we're just going to take these off. Hats were put on like this way, like we were just going into this knowing exactly how this is going to go.
They probably have radios, like even back then, like when I was a bouncer, which just even saying that sentence now, 30 years later, makes me smile. But when I was a bouncer at a bar in Ocean City, Secrets. Right? So, yeah,
you were a bouncer. Like when you paused, like you were a bouncer at Secrets.
I was a doorman. I was a doorman.
I don't like getting in fights.
I checked IDs, right? I got really good at spotting IDs. Right. What's funny is that the way you spot IDs without actually knowing what the license looked like and stuff, and like you didn't have the little phone where you just you're matching it. Like you just, what's really funny is like you can just tell as they're because like if you know Secrets, like you walk down the street and it takes up an entire block, and like you see groups coming as always a massive line. But there's two ways. One is like someone in the party's underage when they start shuffling around how they're walk in. They start shuffling around like the order of the people. Like they start going like,
they start moving around.
Yeah. So I'm just like, someone in that group. We're gonna find that group. Like I'll talk to the other doorman. I'm like, we're gonna find that person. And another way too that it's a fake ID or it's someone else's. Like back in the day, it was hard to make fake IDs.
Right. You just took someone else's ID.
You just took someone else's ID.
Yeah.
What I realize is like when you're 21, you basically walk in and like you just here's a license, and then you're talking to your friends when you're 21, right? When you're not 21, you go
and you stand there,
like you're just like
and
I'm like no 21-year-old does that, like
what did you
to try and match the picture?
What did you ask them to make sure that you knew that it was a fake ID?
I don't remember.
So I always asked, what's your sign?
That's a good one.
Everyone knows their sign. Even if you don't believe in it, you just know that you're a Cancer or you're a Sagittarius. You just know.
Right.
When you have a fake ID, you would think someone would be like, "What's your address?" 527 Oak Road, and they're like, okay, no one talks like that. I would go beyond that and just say, "What's your sign?" And if they got it right, I'd be like, "All right."
Or at least you studied.
Yeah, you've answered the B question. You didn't even. I didn't get to the A question because it's like, or where'd you go to high school?
I know. There was one time working at Secrets when a kid came up questionable, right? Like on the line. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm that age too, right? So like, I think I'm 21, right? 21. No, definitely 21. So like, they're my peers.
Right.
And this kid walks up and he hands me an ID, and I look at it, and like, it's clearly a guy I was kind of friends with in college. Like clearly him on the picture. Clearly him. All right. And I just look at it and I go, and I just look back at him and I said, "How do you know Jim?" And he's like, "Excuse me." I'm like, "How do you know Jim? Because you're not Jim." He said, Jim. "Oh, I'm his little brother." I was like, "Have a good time." Yeah. But it was
stay out of trouble. It was always my line. Stay out of trouble.
But it was just so funny because I'm staring at it like, like you're not like this. I know this guy. I literally know this guy.
We had to card everyone at Max's. So I worked the door there in Fells Point, and you had to card everyone. And what was interesting was when the people that got bent out of shape, that you were doing your job, like when the older guys, like probably like us, if someone asks for my ID, I'm not like, it's just like, it's your job. Well, because I had the job. So of course I'm even giving him more grace, but like, it's just the guy's job. He sits on a stool and he asks for IDs, and he holds the door open when people are getting thrown out. That's his job. So when he asked you, Pops, for your ID, and they say things like, "I'm old enough to be your dad." I'm like, "All right, Dad, I still need your ID. I still need you to have a valid ID." There was the people that wanted to debate with you. Did you ever have those people when you're like, or if you got a fake and you're like, women were the worst when you're like, "This is a fake ID." And then they would just be like, they would yell at you and call you like, and you're just like, prove me wrong. Give me another form of ID. Give me a credit card, anything.
And not a library card.
That has that name on it. Prove me wrong.
The library card was always the first backup.
Right. Give me something else that has your name on it, and I'll let you in. And they were like, jerk. And then, you guys got that. I was like, well, try
I don't want to drink here
else.
Anyway.
Try someplace else. But it was always that like feeling of like, I'm just doing my job. But you got to see the world go by, and you got to see every walk of life come in and out of a bar. And it was such a great job.
It was
such a great job.
It was a really fun job. Yeah. And like
Secrets, Jesus.
Yeah. So there was a shift at Secrets. It was called the VD shift. And it was basically like 3 until 11-ish, right? The place closed at maybe 12:30 or 1. But the shift was 3 until, and the VD stood for volume decrease.
Oh, I had venereal disease.
Well, that's,
sorry. Okay.
Yes, but there's that too, right? That's why it was called the VD shift. Because what would happen is when your shift ended, you just basically took off your t-shirt, your staff t-shirt, turned it inside out, put it on, and now you're in Gen Pop. Like, now you're drinking.
You just took the words of your Gen Pop. Welcome to the show.
Now you're drinking this. Yeah. But the best thing about it
for
is
free.
Is like, now you're safe. Like, you might as well be a cop, right? Like, you're not just some scumbag off the street hitting on girls. You're not just some dirtbag. You're not like they'll remember you from working there, and they'll see your weird pink orange. They used to have the crappiest color shirts. And I remember like when you untucked your shirt and turned inside out, like the top of the shirt, I don't even know what the fuck I have this here, but it was almost this color, this little pop socket thing. It's like one of my kids. Right? But
I didn't expect that to come into camera, like an orange robot thing.
My kids love these things. I don't know. So they gave me one, but it should be this color, right?
Right.
But when you tuck it into shorts and you're in the sun most of the day, like when you're working the day shift, like it fades to be this weird, really light orange, almost like a peach,
Sherbet.
like if you actually look at a real peach, like that
Right.
faded kind of orange.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you untuck your shirt, it goes from like faded orange to bright orange, and it's just the
Right.
weirdest look, like because the tucked in part is never in the sun, so it doesn't fade. So you're walking around looking like a clown, but everyone just kind of trusts you,
Right.
and then you close the place out, and it was always a fun shift. I got punched by a woman once. That was the only time. But bringing it back to Pat O'Brien's, like we all had radios. Like we all had walkie-talkies. So like when you saw, you know how you can see things brewing, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like when you took your sunglasses off, there's probably someone who's like, we need people out in the courtyard right now. There's about to be a fight, right?
Table 27 just got up.
Yeah. So when I was on rounds, you know, and it's funny, like people would come in, like I would always see Friends, right? It was a popular bar. And they'd be like, you work here? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, you're a bouncer? I'm like, yeah. They're like, where's your wetsuit? And I'm like, huh? They're like, dude, you're definitely getting fucking thrown in the bay. Like you should be bouncing in a wetsuit. I'm like, right. Like, okay, chuckles. But you know, so I saw this one woman was getting really belligerent, and like I got on the radio, and usually you when you dispatch something, like something's happening, it's you know, the manager, whoever the head doorman at the time is the one who will assess the situation. So I called for him. He came in and he's like, yeah, you know, she's got to go. So a couple other guys came in for backup, and we, you know, tell her politely she's got to leave. And so we walk her out. We walk her, and then we're like, where's your car? Who's driving? Are you driving? Okay, great. So now there's probably about 5 of us and 2 older women. And we walk them to their car. She's still belligerent, right? Like, fuck you, that piece of shit. I'm not drunk. Right. You guys are fucking assholes. Blah, blah. Like stumbling, you know, like on her heels.
Always great.
And we get right to the car, and like there's always someone kind of on her, like just gently, you know, just keeping her up, but also moving forward. So we get right to the car. She turns around and just wails me right in the gut. Like, and she connected, right? And it's good. Like
cold cocked you. Oh.
Yeah. She turned around and wailed me, right? I don't really, like, I sort of, you know, you go, your adrenaline sort of takes over your memory, right? You don't know, you're not even the same person anymore. I literally cocked back like this.
Right.
And then the next thing you knew, I was like in a complete full Nelson by one of the other doormen, and like
being escorted away from the situation.
Like I literally went like this, and all of a sudden I'm like,
right.
You know, which hurt more than the punch.
Right.
And
that's great.
And he was just like, you don't want to do that.
No.
You don't want to do that. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting there like,
right. She hit me.
So then, you know, they get in the car, they drive away. Then everyone turns to me, and I'm just staring at them, and they're just like, ooh, ooh, that sucked, you know? And I was like, okay.
Yeah. At Max's one time, I was what I don't think people understand is when you say you're like a doorman. Like I said, I was a doorman one time. I've told stories about being a doorman, and people are like, you were like a bouncer? I was like, no, we had doormen and we had bouncers. They're 2 different jobs. Like if you looked at the, like on a resume, what they do is different.
I'm a waiter and a busboy.
Right. Yeah. So one time I was working the door at Max's. It was me and my friend Dave, and we're both like these skinny white guys with ponytails out there. And we're just checking IDs and doing a job and clicking people in, clicking people out, doing a job. And there were these bigger guys that came in, and they were just like, I don't know, they looked jacked, but they were big. And asked for IDs. And this one guy was like, fuck you. And I was like, man, I just need to see your ID before I let you in. He's like, fuck you. What are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm not going to do anything. He's like, well, then fuck you. And he pushes me, and my head did like on the back of the thing, because I didn't expect him to touch me.
Right.
Like, he pushed me and then started walking into the club. Well, we had the same thing. So all of a sudden I like got hot, and I just and we had hand signals to the severity of what's happening. And I just put up that this means if I do this, fuck that guy up. And I just did one of those and said, we've got a guy coming to the bar, get him out. And then our bouncers came in. And it was one of the most violent things I've ever seen happen at that point, where this guy got roughed up so bad. This guy, Trey, who was one of our bouncers, beat him so bad to the door, and I'm holding the door open, that his shoe came off. Then Trey picked up his shoe and started beating him with his shoe on the ground. And there was a pole right near the door. So if you opened it, it was like a regular light pole right out front of the door. And you either got slammed into a car if they liked you, or a pole. But he went bonk right in that pole, and it was enough like, oh, and then he like slid down it like a cartoon, and he started beating him with his shoe. And then the cop came over and we're like, arrest that guy. He gets cuffed. And then the best part was like, we started and I was like checking IDs, like, anyone else? We all good? Then people started up again, like, what the fuck was that? And again, it happened so quickly. And I was like, that's why I love that job. Yeah. I held the door. There's a couple of times where I had to run in the bar because it was a huge fight.
Yeah. I mean, you're
like grab people,
I was a doorman, right? So most of my responsibility was checking ID, but sometimes I just did a patrol, right? And there, the hell was I going to say? I don't even remember. I mean, there was definitely times where there were a little bit of a scuffle and you had to get on and tell people. I just love the fact that we didn't have the Al Bundy wall, right? Like where you walk someone out, boom, into the wall and then, put them through the door. I just love that. I mean, one of the worst parts about working at Secrets though, was that they have like certain dress codes. If you remember,
that's the worst.
You couldn't wear your hat backwards. That was a rule. You couldn't have a do-rag like bandana. That was a rule. There was rules about tank tops after 6, like just all that bullshit. Because people come in on boats, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a beat though. Half the bar is sand. It's outside. There's palm trees.
Yeah.
And I would walk up to someone. I was like, you need to turn your hat around. And they would just be like,
that's the worst.
Says who? And I'm like,
not me.
I'm like, that's a bar policy. And they're like, that's fucking stupid. And I'm like,
it is.
It doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not. You're going to get thrown out of here. And the more you disagree with it, the more violently you're going to get thrown out of here. Right. So if I were you, I would just either leave or turn your hat around. And there's like, you're going to do something about it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do anything about it. But this little radio is going to bring in about 50 people who are going to do something really about it. Right?
It's going to get violent very quickly.
Yeah. And I just look at them like, what do you like? If I own this place, do you think I'd really be in this stupid fucking orange shirt with a radio walking around? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not my decision.
Do you think I'd be walking around telling people to turn their hats around? No, I'd be paying some other guy to walk around and tell everyone, because that's my standard. That's what I want.
So no matter how much you debate with me, A, I can't give you a free pass. B, I can't change the rule. Like, just do it. But it was just like, I would just be standing there, be like, 1:30 in the afternoon, nice day, tame crowd. And I'd see 3 guys walking with hat backwards. And I'd just be like, fuck, like,
or see some guy in the bar, turn his hat around. And you're like,
yeah. Cause I know how it's going to end. Right.
Right.
No one ever just goes, oh, I'm so sorry. That never happens.
Well, that's where you get the FNG to go do it. The fucking new guy, just like hat. And then the FNG goes and deals with it. Like it's definitely like a, you've got your head bouncer, like all the thing. And then the FNG, the person that's just new, you just like make them do all the shitty things. Tell that woman to get off that bar stool.
I have I have a fake ID story. I'd be surprised if I didn't tell it in season 1, but, so there was a guy in my fraternity. His name was Ted, right? But his driver's license said Theodore Emmanuel Anderson II. That was his name, full name. And, hey, Ted. And
way to go, Ted. Thanks for listening, Ted.
He took with about a month apart, we drove into DC and I got a Washington, DC official like walker's ID. It wasn't a driver's license. It was I don't want to drive, but I need an ID.
It's like an ID. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just an ID. And so we walk in, he goes up to the window, he presents all the things, he fills out a form, he does everything. Then he and I sit down in the waiting room. They call his number. I walk up, they take the picture, I get my thing, and then we leave. Right. So he did that twice. without even thinking, right? Because we're fucking 19, right? Or whatever, however old we were. Ted was older. He was like an older fraternity brother. But without even thinking, the three of us go to Hammer Jacks. Remember that in Baltimore?
Yes.
And
The old Hammer Jacks.
and we're not even
one.
thinking
That you're all
even
the
when
same
we
name.
get there that
Right.
we're all the same guy.
Yep.
We're not even thinking, right? So we're about to go in, and all of a sudden, like I was like, dude, we need to stagger this. Like we're all Theodore Emmanuel Anderson II. like this is not cool, right? So I'm the youngest looking, so I'm like, all right, I'll go in first, right? So I walk up, give him the ID. The bouncer looks at me and goes, oh fuck, man, dude, we have the same birthday. I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's awesome, man. Right. Like, celebrate, cheers, like that's awesome. He's like, yeah, man, have a good time, right? So I walk in and immediately I'm like, this is going to be fun, right? So
could be drink and be like watching, be like.
So I go over to the corner bar,
and you can't text them because that doesn't exist. That technology does not exist.
You know, like I probably ordered something with a straw. I'm just like. Just like, and so, I'm waiting.
Number two walks in.
I see the second non-Ted walks up, and I see, he hands him, and he has no idea what he's walking into, right? Because he didn't, because he didn't, he wasn't there when
the best.
So he has no idea. So he walks in. I see the bouncer just like,
God, it's so weird.
And I'm just, meanwhile, I'm just sitting there like,
right.
And so he gets in and he comes in and he just sits down and he's like, I'll have what he's having, because it wasn't so now we're like, should we even be sitting next to each other? Right. Yes. Like, because totally. So we're there
because the real guy won't get in the bar. Right.
So yeah, but what's so great, and this is just Baltimore, this is Hammer Jacks, this is the early 90s, right? But mostly Baltimore, right? Ted walks up and he, and again, no idea what he's walking into. So he walks up, he hands me ID, and I literally just see the bouncer go.
They're over there.
And he's just like, I cannot believe
I'm playing the lotto.
Yeah. And then Ted comes in and he goes, well, that was fucking weird. And I'm like, dude, the bouncer had our birthday.
Right. And that's so great that he was just like, yeah, I used to love.
He never thought, like, even when we were together, he was never just like, wow, those three guys with the same birthdays are friends. Like, how do they pick which one to celebrate?
The worst ones were like the Marines, the guys in the military. You could tell that they were fresh out of boot camp or fresh out of training or something like that. They just looked different. And you can learn the job, lets you just read people. I think it's the one skill it gave me really well was being able to read people's body language and who people are based on, just instinct. And the military guys were always funny is when they would hand you a fake ID. And it was, let's say it was close, but here's this kid with like a fucking jar head and he's just like standing there just waiting to clenched jaw, waiting to go into the bar because he's 19. And you're like, do you have your military ID? And the first thing is they move, they go for, no. Why do you have dog tags on? And they have a chain with dog tags on. It's like, just give me your military ID. Go have a good time. Protect and serve. Thank you. But don't get in any trouble. That was always my line. Just don't get in any trouble. And it was always funny with Marines, or guys were just you can tell you're in the military. You have dog tags on. Give me a military ID. What is this bullshit from Wisconsin? This thing you just gave me.
It just bends in half.
It's just this flippy floppy thing.
Or the stencil. Do you remember the stencil you put on top of it? You so that all the lettering and numbers were dark.
I never had to hold up the thing to get my photo taken. Yeah.
Polaroid.
My fraternity, we basically ran this liquor store in Towson. And everyone had to kind of work there, and pledges had to constantly stock the shelves for free. We had to work there. But the very first time I pledged, it was very, very beginning of pledging, I walked in and I was told to go get 10 cases of beer And I had no ID. They're just like, pledge, go get 10 cases of beer at the liquor store. I'm like, okay. And they gave me the money. And then I had to walk them back through campus. So I grabbed another pledge and we went and we walked in. And I was thinking, how am I going to get beer without a fake ID? And then I see my fraternity brother behind the counter. And he looks at me. I'll never forget this. He looks at me and he goes, "You're now Steve," and hands me a fake ID, because they were taking IDs and then they would put them on this like board to show that they were grabbing fake IDs. What we didn't know was they were also giving them out to every fraternity guy who needed a fake ID. So it was like this constant, like, take ID, give ID. And he's like, memorize this. This is who you are. And it was always this great thing where, like, now I'm this guy and he looked nothing like me. And I looked nothing, you know what I mean? Like, he was probably like,
it's like dealing the drugs that are confiscated at the police.
Right.
At the police just get them right back in the system.
But in college, it was like, you're just participating. Thank you for at least handing me something that I can say I looked at. And it was like an exchange. But college bars, it was always that feeling of like, okay.
So the very first time I had heard about this system that the bouncers did at Maryland, there was a bar called The Cellar. And it was like just a dive, right? Like, just shitty, you know, like the taps had tapeworms. Like, it was just that kind of a bar, right? And that's where you went when you were underage. That's where everyone knew that you go when you're underage. So what I learned is that there was a system, and you would go behind the bar and you would pay a guy, like, I forget if it was $5 or $10. I think it was only $5. You'd pay that guy $5. He put a stamp on your hand, just a little blue circle, you know, just so which could have come from anywhere, right? So then you go back and you wait online at the bar. And then when you get there, you show whatever you want to show, but the bouncer sees the stamp and knows you've already been bribed, so he lets you in, right? So the first time I did it, I go in the back, give him my money, he gets stamped. And like, how is it that I know that that's happening, but the police don't, right? So like, or the police are probably getting half that cut, but something's going down, right? There's no way I know that this operation exists, but the cops don't. Right. So I go pay my money, get my stamp. I go wait online. It's like 15 minutes. So I get up there and of course, all I do is this. And and he's like, "Do you have ID?" And I'm like, he's like, "I need to see ID.
I need to see something."
Yeah. And then basically, like, and then, you know, he's this big, he's a bouncer, right?
Football player, probably.
Yeah. And he just goes, "Take something out of your fucking wallet and show it to me. God damn it." You know? And I was like, oh, you know, so like, I don't even think my wallet was out. Right. So like, you know, and this is my freshman year. It's a week into college. Right. So I just take out my wallet and I literally just take out my driver's license and show him
your real ID. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just like, "Thank you." You know, and like, so I walk in, I'm like, "Oh, fuck." Like, okay. And then, but then as soon as I walk through the door, like, and now like, I'm not even like, I've never been to this bar. Everything is so new. And I already feel like I don't belong here. Like, you know, like you just have that feeling of like, I hate being a rookie, like a first timer, a newbie, you know? So like, even when I walked up to the bar, like I stood behind everybody. I wasn't aggressively getting a beer, you know, it was just like, fuck. Like, I don't belong here. It's the worst feeling in so many different phases of our lives where we have to be the rookie and you don't know, but the older you get and you're the rookie, because even when I did when I'm doing the firefighting stuff, like I assume at 51, I'm still a rookie, like there. So when I was told to like wipe down, like to mop this area, I went to the chief and I said, not to sound dumb, but show me how you want me to do this, because you just have to show me once. Yeah. But I want to do it how the way you want me to do it. And I learned that working in a kitchen. Like, I know how to chop up a carrot, but show me how you want it done. And that way I'll do it that way every time, rather than me being like, "Rookie, what the fuck is this? You call this chopped carrot?" And you're like, I guess, you know, like, and it's, you can't even take a shit the right way in those environments. You know what I mean? So you just learn to be like, again, the bar the same way. Like then you knew you were probably like, yup. It's funny because I literally just had that experience last weekend. I went to my first NHRA drag race. Oh, and and I was a rookie, right? Like
Yeah.
I had never been to an HRA,
Right.
right? And so there's a couple things. First of all, it was really weird walking around, like not having some weird sense of proprietary like I do at NASCAR races,
Right.
where I can just walk in and out of haulers freely. I can just lean up against the car. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Talk
know
to
the
the
driver,
stars.
I know the
Hey.
crew, I
Right.
know the PR people, I
Right.
know everything. I've got a hard card, you know, I
Mhm.
just walk like I'm comfortable there. Right.
Right.
And it's
Not
not like I
kind of.
take advantage of it. I'm just
No.
comfortable. I just, you know, I see fences and barriers typically
Yeah.
don't apply to me. And that's cool. Right. But then like there, I remember and we were there to like, you know, they're part of the Toyota family. So like
Mhm.
I'm technically on the part of the team, right? We were shooting some stuff for Mobile One. So again, like I'm part, like they pay the bills, Mobile
Mhm.
One, right? So like I should technically be more important than the crew guys, right? But I was a rookie. So I just don't like, I literally got to the area where they were like tooling on the cars and fixing
Right.
the cars. And like there were stanchions keeping people out. And like I was like taking pictures from the other side of the stanchion. Like I
Mhm.
just didn't feel comfortable. I
Right.
could have
Being in
probably
there.
just
Right.
walked in, grabbed food, did like and they probably wouldn't have even blinked, right? Because you know, they just like he obviously belongs here because why would
Right.
some fan just walk in and walk into the
Right.
hauler and just start eating, right? So, but I remember just standing there like, fuck, I hate being a rookie. I hate being a newbie. Like I'm actually wearing an NHRA penny, like a media penny, right? Like with to
Right.
take pictures and do things. And I still basically hung around Gen Pop. Where I didn't, and this was a big thing to learn, right? A big thing to learn. There's two big things to learn. A, they are loud as fuck. Loud
Yep.
as fuck. And I'm used to NASCAR, right? But
Yeah.
like
It's a
when you
different sound.
when you put earplugs in, right? And of course I'm going to put earplugs in. But when you just take the normal, you know, there's like
Right.
two little pieces of foam and a string, right? And you just earplugs. And you're standing near it. And I don't mean next to it. I mean, you know, in the same, you know, within 20 yards of it. Those earplugs basically turn that car into a NASCAR stock car with no earplugs.
Right.
Right. So that's basically what those earplugs do.
Yeah.
Right. You need a set like this on top of the earplugs to be almost like being in a NASCAR race with earplugs. Right. So we learned that the hard way because we are down. I was with a guy who was shooting and editing. He and I are standing like up against the wall, like where they come down, you know, it's just a straightaway. They just come down like that.
Yep.
We're basically like, you know, like we're 10 feet from them, right? Because we're on the cement divider. So, and we both have earplugs in. And like I didn't notice until after we were both like, fuck. Right. Like I didn't notice until after that every other photographer had like real noise canceling type stuff. No one just had those little things. And and first of all, and like you also felt like I turned to him after that, like because we were both just like, oh my God. And like I had one of these in my bag in the media center. So I'm like, I'm gonna go get you this.
The ones that we got that formed your ear?
No, oh no, forget like those would have worked less. This is I just had the ones that you stuck because there was no reason to have a radio. So yeah, these were just ones you stuck in, like if someone's snoring, right? Like you stuck them in there.
Yep.
And so that's not going to work. So I was like, look, I have like one of these, like an actual headset with no wire. It's just earmuffs basically. I brought one just in case. I'm going to go get it, give it to you because you're shooting with the real equipment and I'm going to be watching from behind the glass. Right. So
saving my hearing.
Got it. Gave it to him. Right. But I told him when I came back, I'm like, dude, that is the closest I feel like that will ever come to surviving a bomb blast. Like, because not only is the noise deafening, the rush of air that hit us knocked me back. Like I'm not exaggerating. This isn't hyperbole. I almost stumbled onto the ground because it was such a force of air that hit us. I was like, holy, they'd go 300 miles an hour in like 2 seconds. Right. Yeah. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two, this might be a more important one. I don't know what those things are burning for fuel. But but it's not the normal 97 octane gas. I'll tell you that much.
Like
I don't know.
fuel.
I don't know what it is, but like when we were in the garage area and they were revving the engines and like smoke, it's not smoke, it's like exhaust, right? So it's not quite smoke, but you can't really see through the air. It comes out and it just starts engulfing everything near around it, right? Most of the crew people, they're not flinching. Most of the people who look at their work, they're not flinching. Most of the fans are starting to kind of walk a little bit, like just disperse, right? And I'm just walking. Right. And I'm just like, yeah, it's exhaust. Like again, in the garage, there's NASCAR, always cars on. You just, I walk into it. And the only way I can describe it is like if you just ate a big spoonful of horseradish. Right. Because all of a sudden my eyes start stinging and watering. My whole nose like expanded and it had that weird horseradish tingle. Like, and I was like, what the fuck is going? I was like, what is going on? Like, what did I just? And I immediately turn around and start walking away. I'm like, what? You know? And like, meanwhile, the crew guys are just still standing there behind the smoke, like, you know, like just wait. And I'm like,
probably one guy has a cigarette in his mouth.
And I'm like, and I turned to a person who was like helping us, like my contact there. And she was like, "Oh, you get used to it." I'm like, "No, I'm never going to get used to this. I used to love
that. You get used to it.
I'm never getting used to this.
No. And my
face hasn't reacted like that maybe ever.
Right. Yeah.
So when you see smoke at one of those events, stay away from it.
I did a small couple year stint where I was working in an agency where Mopar was our client. So I was going to NHRA events and we were shooting some stuff for them and they were doing all this stuff with the Hemi engines for Mopar. But yeah, I couldn't believe I didn't know things got that loud. Do you know what I mean? Like I've been to like Motorhead shows. I have been to rock shows where you're like, that's loud.
Metallica's loud.
Nothing compared to, I didn't know there was another level. So the only quick story I have to tell is like, I remember kind of being where you were, but we had a crew and I wasn't doing real much of anything. I was there to make sure, I was like the AD on it. It was just to make sure the content we were getting was content we could use on the website. So we're sitting there shooting everything and they're revving the engines, kind of like in NASCAR where they're like, you know, when they're in the garage and they're just like laying on it, just like, okay, we're trying to throttle it. It was the same thing. And then they'd adjust it and then they like lay it down. I'm like, okay, I thought that, and you might have had this experience, that's where it's going to go because the throttle's open. When they raced and they opened it up to take off, and both of them, I've never heard, like you said, or felt anything like that before in my life. And I remember the first time it happened, I remember looking at the guy like, how many more of these do we have to go through? And because I don't know if I could have taken another one. I was like, wait, that was just one. We got it. He's like, well, we're going to race 4 times. I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, the Mopar car they'll do 4 runs. Right. And then they come back around, they make adjustments, they put new tires. It's like
they rebuild the whole engine.
They just literally
explode the entire, every engine only gets one shot down the track. And then they have like 60 to 90 minutes to rebuild the whole engine.
Right.
It was like, I went and watched that. I'm like, that's insane. It's like 6, it looked like an operating room. Yeah. It's like 6 guys in the black shirts with the black collars and little things. And they have like gloves and they're just surrounding this table and they're all just like,
and this is maybe another good podcast, but I still didn't understand the sport of it. Right. Like me against you, let's just go do this. Like I didn't see how fans would get into it, but again,
that's
to each his own. Like I was like, okay, once you see one, you're like, but the same thing probably for NASCAR or Formula One or anything else. Once you have your fan favorites and they're going to go up, so-and-so is going to go up against so-and-so. Okay, well, that's something. But to me, it just struck me as like people sit and watch this all day because it's literally the same
all day
type of activity.
They had lots of different classes, right? So there was the top fuel, like the long, weird looking ones. Like they look like those cars that you race, the soapbox, whatever the kids make. And then they had like the funny car, which is the closest thing to a car. But then they had like those, like they had this one class where it's like all kinds of different cars. You could tell that they were just like home racing guys who just like to swing wrenches in their garage. And like, because I remember there was this one, like it almost looked like a VW bus looking thing, right, with just a giant engine in the back, and then like a normal looking car that had stickers on them, right? There was the motorcycle races. So like there's action on the track all day, right? One thing I was also, I don't know if this was your experience, but I was surprised by is how many malfunctions there were at the line. Like the thing would go like boop, 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 and like one car would go and the other would go like,
and then and conk out,
and they were just like, oh, like that's a shame that the blah, and you're just like, what, you
just
like,
did all that for that?
Like we traveled God knows how many thousands of miles, like put in all the time,
exactly,
and like literally it was just like, and parachute just pops out, like, and you're just like, oh, and they're like, oh, what a shame for the, Michigan racing, and you're just like, that's pretty, like, I can do that, like I can not go, like exactly. It just, but it happened a lot. Like there was, I guess true. I guess a lot of the sport is actually being able to get the damn thing to work. I don't know.
Right.
How long have we been doing this?
We're close.
Stop? We didn't even get to
dryer sheets. Dryer sheets. We'll just call this one NHRA.
Should we? We spent an hour on bars and bouncing and 5 minutes on NHRA. I just like, will anyone who comes here for NHRA? All right, we'll call it
Tony Stewart.
No,
isn't he married to like a chick that like does that?
Leah Pruitt. Yeah. She she lost her first one. I think Brittany Force won another one. There's a lot of women too in this.
Oh,
there was a lot of women.
Good.
And they're the stars.
Yeah.
Why don't we call it? I like NHRA. We'll call it NHRA. But then
dryer sheets.
No, because we'll do dryer sheets next. Okay. Let's just do. Hold on, let me.
Sorry, guys, we're doing a little housekeeping.
I don't know where. We'll just remember dryer sheets because I never remember what the fuck we talked about last time. So we'll call it. How about bar fights?
Mm-hmm.
So bar fights and NHRA.
NHRA. I'd watch that for at least 5 minutes.
Right. There's and we'll put it in different order, right? Because usually the NHRA event, which then leads to a bar fight. Cool. All right, brother.
All right, man. It's always a pleasure. Again, let me get my plug for our plug for Kicking Horse Coffee.
Cool.
Thanks
for listening.
All right, bud.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Talk
See you next time.